Welcome, beautiful souls, to our full moon feature where we have interesting conversations with interesting people. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Doris Efford, known as the Chaos Comer, because I help people to reclaim their time so they can focus on what matters. If you have any questions or comments, make sure that you put them in the chat so that I can ask our guest and we can let you know right away. So, we have so much to cover, and I am so excited to introduce you to our guest. I am just checking to make sure that everything is working here, and it looks like it is. So here we go. If you're ready to get started, put ready in the chat, and if you're not, well, we're getting started anyways. If you're watching the replay, let me know. This is interactive, even for the folks who couldn't make it live. So make sure you leave your questions in the comments and I'll make sure that they're addressed. And I have a connection with our guest so we can make sure that she also addresses them. So let's go ahead and get started. Yesterday was the flower moon in our neck of the woods, and we're seeing all kinds of evidence of nature budding and changing. And with that in mind, I thought who better to talk about change than a fat loss coach like our guest, Melissa Shevchenko from Fit Girls Rock, who is known as the queen of simple fat loss because she is the badass coach women turn to when they're tired of restrictive diets and being shackled to the scale. Her mission is to create sustainable change by helping women take their badass power back. So welcome, Melissa.
Hey, Doris. Hi, everybody. Really nice and really excited to be here.
We're so happy to have you, and I'm just checking to make sure that we're live. And no matter how many times I refresh it, I don't see it, but everything says that it's working. So we're going to go with this. We are live on both Facebook in the Goals by Moonlight group as well as YouTube right now. So we'll see if we get any questions. Perfect. For starting out, the first question that I have for my guests always is, what is one thing about you that we would not find on your resume?
Good one. I guess I will say my husband and I are avid travelers. We have traveled to all different ends of the globe and around the world. But despite being an avid traveler, I hate flying. And my husband is also a private pilot, but I still hate flying. So that would be probably the thing that is very kooky about me, I'll say, because I really love to travel, but I hate the kind of way we have to get there, so to speak. Flying makes me nervous.
Have you ever been up in the air with your husband?
Mm-hmm. Twice. Very nervous. When I get out of the plane, literally my legs feel like I just did a really good leg day. That's how tense I am.
Nice. All right, awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to become a fat loss coach?
Absolutely. I'll try and keep it somewhat short because I can tend to babble and it can tend to get long. I've been kind of into fitness more or less my whole life. I've always done team sports. I was always interested in just, feeling and moving my body, I will say. I was never what I would classify though as what I didn't present myself as a fit and healthy individual, even though I was always interested in sports. In 2011, I married my husband. We were on our honeymoon and I really didn't feel great in my skin. I just didn't feel good about myself. And I remember saying to him at that time that I was going to hire a trainer as soon as I got home and I was really going to get serious about changing things. And so I did. And I hired a trainer. I learned how to lift. I, got some confidence in the gym, started to understand how strong I really was. And it was a really slow process for me physique-wise in that I didn't see any changes at all for the first 6 months I was into this kind of journey outside of just, feeling stronger and things. And then things started to change and things started to progress physique-wise. And then I decided to compete. And I competed, got on stage, flaunted myself in the bikini, the fitness competition world. And then after that, I had a really hard time with my health, with how I felt about my body, how I felt in my skin, with my mindset, with everything. And that's kind of where I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. And so I started to dig into education, and I got the certification to become a personal trainer. And then I started to dig into deeper things, the nutrition part of it, but also the mindset part of it. And I thought, I'm struggling with all these things, but if I'm struggling and I'm learning, I don't want other women to have to go through the things that I just went through. And that's basically how I ended up here. More or less. Basically, the goal when I became a coach was, you know what? I don't want women to have to deal with these kind of heartaches and hardcore stuff and these mindsets that I had to go through. And if I can prevent even one person from having to go through that kind of heartache to get to a sustainable lifestyle, I'll say, then I've done my job. I've done my due diligence. So that's what led me here.
And I think from what I've seen on your page and the people that I do know that have been in your programs, I think mission is accomplished, because there's a lot of people who have been pretty happy with the work that they've been doing with you.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I've coached over 2,500 women, and I've helped well, at least that many women transform their lives. And the coaching goes deeper than just, nutrition, and which is what we're going to talk about today, nutrition and workouts. It goes deeper into some deeper things that involve mindset and how your mindset can hold you back.
Absolutely. Awesome. For the audience, whether you're watching live right now or if you're watching the replay a little bit later, I would like to know from you, do you find that it's your mindset or your motivation that trips you up the most often when it comes to fat loss? I'd really like to know what you guys think.
I'd like to know
while we're waiting. Sorry?
I said I'd like to know the answer to that one too.
Yeah. So while we're waiting, Melissa, are there any, well, there are so many different approaches to fat loss out there. What would you say sets your philosophy apart from more traditional methods?
So for me, I feel like fat loss is presented most often in this industry as a hardcore, all or nothing, restrictive, white knuckle through, willpower through type process. And while you'll never hear me say that this journey is easy, I think that it can be done in much simpler fashions than is out there. I don't think, and nor do I teach, that it is about restriction. What you'll see in the industry is very often overcomplicated, and it is more about dictating what I will say, like, do this, don't do that, eat this, don't eat that. And for me, it's always been about, through my own journey as well, and then with teaching clients, we have to look at sustainable processes, and simple is how we create consistency, and consistency is ultimately, at the end of the day, how we create results. So I'm looking to change clients, not just from a surface level standpoint, but also from an inside out standpoint, where we're touching on not just the surface level stuff, but also the deeper rooted stuff that goes into things and mindset things like self-sabotage, self-limiting beliefs, the way that you talk to yourself, those sort of things. And I don't think that there's enough of that in this industry, because at the end of the day, all of those things are going to either propel you forward or potentially hold you back and keep you stuck. I think I lost Doris.
In the meantime, one thing that I did notice that come up with other people, I noticed that you call yourself a fat loss coach, the queen of simple fat loss, not a weight loss coach.
Good question.
Is there a difference?
There is. Actually, we talked about this in our live coffee time inside my Building Badasses community today. So the difference between weight loss and fat loss, in a very simple, I guess, way without having to go into complex detail, is with weight loss, you're just looking and striving for a scale number to come down. So you're doing everything at all costs to be smaller, thinner, skinnier, basically. But with fat loss, you are actually creating a sustainable health focused process that focuses on maintaining or improving metabolism, as well as maintaining or building muscle through your process, in basically helping you implement things that will help you longevity wise, that will help you with your bone mass, your muscle mass, your lifestyle change that creates sustainability, as opposed to just let's drive this scale number down so quickly as possible in at all costs, regardless of mental and physical health and well-being. That's the main difference between the two.
Yeah, and that makes sense because there are so many different factors to what creates our weight versus, I mean, people don't want to lose muscle mass, like you were saying. People don't want to lose bone density and things like that, but they do want to lose fat for sure.
Absolutely. And most people who come to me, they do state weight loss, but when we talk about things, they also state things like, I want to look toned. I want to be able to wear tank tops and see definition in my arms, or, those kind of things, which is ultimately fat loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, what role does self-awareness play in sustainable fat loss?
So self-awareness is basically the key. Self-awareness is basically the link. So something that as human beings, myself included, a long time ago, we don't have a lot of, we spend a lot of time on autopilot. We're just doing things that we just normally do without necessarily thinking about why we do them, or why we don't do other things, despite, say, wanting a particular goal or a particular dream or something to come to fruition. And self-awareness is basically the first step to changing that. So if you notice that you resist a lot of things, or that you don't show up for the things you say you want to do, or you continuously say you have a goal and you want to do this, but you don't do anything that any sort of action that's propelling you forward and getting you there, self-awareness is the first step. So it's understanding that I'm aware that I don't do these things, even though I say I want this, but also I wonder why I'm not doing the things that I say I want to do to achieve X, or why I say I want X and I'm doing Y. And because at the end of the day, self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. So we have to start building on self-awareness to bring it back to less autopilot and more, wow, I wonder why I do that. Or why I don't do that, or why I keep negotiating and out with myself as opposed to doing the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. That's perfect. For the audience, hello, Joyce. Nice to see you there. What is something that might be impacting your progress? I'd like to know what you think is something that might be impacting your progress. Go ahead and share it in the chat if you'd like, and we can take a look at what that might be. So Melissa, how do emotions and thoughts influence our choices?
Ooh, this is a good one. Again, as human beings, we are highly driven by emotion. So our emotions and the way we feel drive our action more often than stepping back and using logic to propel our actions or lack thereof. And there's nothing wrong with being an emotional human being. In fact, I think emotions are what make us special and make us unique and make us human. But at the same time, again, that autopilot thing kicks in, and we use emotions or thoughts as facts. I feel like I'm stressed, so I need a glass of wine, as an example. Or I feel like I'm tired today, so I'm not going to go for the walk or do the workout or whatever. And again, sometimes those things are legit, but sometimes we have to more often than not, we need to start being able to differentiate between emotions and fact to say, I'm tired today, but would the walk be more helpful than sitting around watching Netflix? Or I'm stressed today, but maybe a workout might help me relieve some of that stress as opposed to turning to a glass of wine. And then, of course, there's also the thing that thoughts drive our actions as well, in that we don't necessarily we always believe our inner critic, or we always believe the voice that's going on in our head and the thoughts that play on repeat over and over, when those thoughts are driven by familiar and comfortable things that we're used to hearing, or we're used to listening to, or we're used to, again, taking as fact. But ultimately, we've forgotten that we hold power over the voice in our head. So we have an opportunity and an ability to reframe that language to something more powerful, useful, helpful to our overall goals. Our internal language and the way we feel often are more impactful in terms of holding us back than we realize they are.
Absolutely. Your internal language is well, and that kind of goes back to self-awareness too, because when you pay attention and you're aware of that internal language, you could say, was that really true? Or are you listening to everything that your brain is telling you or subconsciously telling you?
Absolutely.
So we had an answer to what's something that might be impacting your progress. It was control. My parents said I couldn't have something, but now as an adult, I'm in control, so I'm going to have it.
This is an interesting one. This is a really good one. I've dealt with this with other clients as well. It's one of those things where the inner, and I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a counselor, so I'm not trying to be, but it's one of those things where the inner child comes out, and the inner child is like, you cannot, I've done this. This happened to me my whole life. I'm no longer doing this. If I want it, I'm going to have it because I was told for so long that I couldn't. Again, it's those natural patterns and stories that happen over and over. More often than not, those things that we're playing in our head are coming from childhood, or coming from like that time, where we were in our, it could even be teenage years when we maybe did our very first diet. And those things are hard to overcome, but from a perspective of health and fitness and nutrition, again, not counseling, not psychologist, but it's stepping back and zooming out and looking at the big picture, which I think matters a lot. I want to be in control, which is fine. You can still have that control, but what do you ultimately want? What does your ultimate big goal look like? And are you holding yourself back by saying, nah, 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 I'm going to eat it because I said it, because my parents told me I couldn't, kind of thing. And again, when you do fat loss in a non-restrictive way, it's not that you can't have the things. I'm not the coach that tells you can't have things. I'm the coach that actually tells you can have the things. But there's a difference between being intentional and mindful versus being restrictive and, not eating anything or eating everything. There's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I guess that goes into some of the all or nothing feelings as well on top of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking a little bit about all or nothing, let's talk limiting beliefs, because that's where a lot of us get hung up, right? Is we have a certain belief that, well, if I have one Oreo, then that's it, and I might as well have all the Oreos, or I can't have any Oreos because if I have one, I won't be able to stop, or whatever, right? And that's one of my things for sure.
That was one of my things for a long time.
Yeah. How do you think that something like that might impact your clients, or have you seen that impact your clients?
Oh, absolutely. I think all different kinds of thoughts, even thoughts that we don't even realize, or beliefs that we carry around, I think they impact us in many ways. They impact our action, they impact how we show up, they impact our ability to show up, they impact our ability to get out of like a comfortable state and into some discomfort. They impact our ability to move past our fears about what happens if. And when you're struggling with limiting beliefs, sometimes you don't even realize you have them. They're just a natural part of who you are. They're a thing that there's something that you identify as. I'm an all or nothing person. I'm an overthinker. I'm a perfectionist. I'm never going to get there. I used to always say this. I've always been chubby. Maybe I'm meant to be that way. Those kind of things. And even if we're not necessarily saying them out loud, a lot of times they play on repeat. And they're a way that we hold ourselves back, but we don't necessarily understand that we're doing it. So again, that also then leads back to self-awareness, where once you're self-aware and once you become more aware of the things you say, the things you do, the things you don't do, the things you don't say, how quick are you to reframe? How quick are you to tell your inner critic or those limiting beliefs that, no, you know what, there's no proof that this is actually who I am. I can do this and I have this power to make this other choice. And when I say this, I'm not saying it in a way whereby it's easy, because it isn't. I'm saying it in a way whereby it requires a lot of practice to lead to improvement. But when you understand that and you practice building that confidence to show yourself that you do have the power, that's when you're able to take that power back little bit by little bit by little bit. And that's why slow, consistent, sustainable change can make all the difference, because you dig into more of those things along the way, as opposed to let's rip off all the Band-Aids, go all in, go hardcore and be kind of like, I can do this, but I can't do this with all this restriction and rules. You don't have time to consider what you're doing, what you don't do, what limiting beliefs you have, what kind of internal language you use, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely, yes. And when you're saying about some of those tactics and stuff, that kind of leads into my next question, which is about interrupting those patterns. And it reminds me of something that because I'm just in full transparency, you are my coach, so it reminds me of something that you've said before. And I'd love to hear what it is that people can do to begin to interrupt those patterns.
So for me, to interrupt the patterns, there's a couple of processes that typically I would recommend clients use, or that I would talk clients through. So the first one is, there's immense power in the pause. Actually, Doris, you were the one who said power in the pause the other day when we had a coaching call. So there's immense power in the pause. Again, trying and aiming as best you can to remove yourself from autopilot. And again, when I'm coaching clients, I'm helping them build self-awareness through the entire process, right from start to finish. So we've already established some, say, self-awareness within maybe even a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. And then we start implementing things like power in the pause. I'm about to do this, or I'm telling myself this. I can pause and I can ask myself questions like, how is this serving me? How am I going to feel if I make this decision as opposed to this one? Does this align with the goals that I have for myself, or is this something that's only going to give me instant gratification as opposed to delayed gratification? What am I trying to get from this decision? And then the other one that I use a lot with clients is notice, name, reframe. So we're noticing what we're saying. Sometimes we're even saying, you know what? I recognize that you're trying to keep me safe, inner voice. I recognize that you're trying to keep me in the familiar and comfortable because that's what I know. And then we look at that and we go, okay, but if I reframe this to, I can do this, or I'm not all or nothing, I'm just used to doing all or nothing. That's how we begin to overcome it and take it chunk by chunk to create small minimum promises, non-negotiables that prove to yourself that you can do it despite what you've always done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joyce. She says that she likes the power in the pause. So absolutely. And something that you said that might have seemed just off the cuff for you, but really that did strike me, is when I get in my head about how I can't and how, this isn't going to work or whatever, and you've said, why the hell not me?
Oh
Or
yeah.
why the hell not you? Right?
Yeah.
That's something that you've often said, and that really strikes me, because why not? Like, what are the limiting beliefs that are causing it to not be me? Because it can be me.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think a lot of mindset stuff comes from, there are highly growth oriented fixed, oriented mindset people. There are highly fixed oriented mindset people, and then there are people in the middle. And we can help ourselves. We can grow then from a fix to a growth, or somewhere in the middle. And when we start to ask ourselves questions and take the pause, that's when we can say things like you just said, why the hell not me? Because technically, why the hell not you? Why couldn't it be you? If it could be anybody else, why couldn't it be you? And there's really no reason it couldn't be. And that's where I think whether it's because we're on autopilot, or whether it's because we don't necessarily think about those things, or because we haven't developed a ton of self-awareness, we don't acknowledge, or we forget that we hold so much power over the choices we make, the length of time we allow our critic to take over our head, the limiting beliefs we allow to take up time and space, all of those things.
Absolutely, for sure. So another question for everyone, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, I'd like to know who here has tried a plan that focused only on willpower and rules, and how did that go?
Me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And how did that go for you?
It went terrible many times. I mean, it went really good in the beginning. And I think that in the beginning of anything, everybody's super highly motivated and everybody is super all in it. And it's like, you know what? This is the thing. This is the thing. This is the thing that's going to fix everything. And you go along and you go along. And even when you start going along, you're already thinking, oh, I only have to do this for 30 days, or I only have to do this for X amount of time. And already that's a red flag. Now that's a red flag, because if it's sustainable, there shouldn't be an end date. But yeah, so it was going well until it wasn't, basically.
Yeah. Joyce said she's done it too, and it's not good. And I have. And for some reason, I enjoy the challenge of trying to do that. And I do really well at first. But like you said, it's not sustainable. It's not something that I could keep doing. And I think that's another thing that's helped me too, is letting go of getting there. Like, I only have to do this for so long. And then once I get there, then I can go back to all my old habits and do all my old things. But what comes along with that is that all of those old things will bring me right back to where I am now.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Letting go of that for sure. A lot of programs push hustle and deprivation. Now, how does your approach foster trust and compassion instead?
So I like to meet my clients where they are. And what that means is that not only am I meeting them where they are when they start with me, but I'm also meeting them where they are as we go through the process. So because at the end of the day, as we just talked about, sustainable means that there's no end date. There's no time that you get to stop doing this. But life is always happening in the background, which means that stressful times are going to come up. There are going to be, maybe job changes. There's going to be relationship issues. There's going to be family issues. There's going to be elderly parents. There's going to be, deaths and all of those things. And meeting my clients where they're at means that I help them navigate, because more often than not, we're looking at any bump in the road as a huge problem and as I can't do this. When technically, because we're living life and trying to achieve goals, we need to understand and be compassionate with ourselves enough to employ grace through the obstacles, the struggles, and also enough to employ trust, because when you've gone through, the journey, whether it's a few weeks or a few months, you've already started to grow and change. And you have to be able to put some trust in yourself to say, you know what, and you know this concept Doris, very well, I have to turn my dial down for a little while, but that doesn't mean I have to stop. I don't have to stop everything. I don't even have to pause, but there are going to be certain things I simply cannot do right now, but I'm going to navigate it as best I can, show up as best I can, give the effort that I have available each day, even if that's only 10%. And then when life kind of starts to flow again as per normal, I will turn my dial up. We as women specifically have a very, very hard time giving ourselves grace. And while I think that there's a very fine line, because when you want to achieve goals, you have to also implement grit. You have to get gritty with yourself, and you have to say, you know what? I'm tired right now, but I need to go do my workout, or I need to do my walk. But sometimes, based on life circumstances and based on many, many, many things, more often than not, we need to say, you know what? It's okay for me to slow down. It's okay for me to breathe. It's okay that I can't do everything, but that I can do something. But I know I can do something, and I'm going to choose that something, and I'm going to go to bed happy with the fact that I chose that something over doing nothing. And I think that that's how I build or help build compassion and self-trust, self-belief, and all of those things within my coaching, because there has to be adequate room for grace, even though there still has to be adequate room for grit through the process.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I really enjoy how much you get to know your clients, and you get to know how to work with them. Because we talked about compassion and trust, and we do trust you, and you do have compassion for us. But on the flip side, when we need a little tough love, you're ready to give it to us if that's something that we would respond well to.
Right.
And like I said, you get to know your clients, and you get to know who does and does not respond to tough love. And I hate getting the tough love, but about 5 seconds after I get it, it's like, yeah, I really needed to hear that. Like that's exactly what I needed. So I love that you know me well enough to know these are the things that are going to help motivate me. These are the things that are going to bring me forward.
Right.
So that's fantastic.
And I think that in the beginning too, when you first, for me personally, as a coach, when I first get to know clients, I'm still testing the waters between because I feel like there's a very fine line too as a coach, where you can give someone too much grace and kind of too many, almost like pats on the back, and that's okay for not doing the thing, or allowing the grace to not do the thing. And then there's also a fine line though, where it can be way too much tough love for somebody. So finding that balance, especially in the beginning as a coach, can be difficult, but that's where you kind of test the waters a little bit. And that's where also, when the coaching is more about starting small and keeping things simple, it's easier in a way, in its own way, even though not easy, simpler, I will say, for clients to achieve small things that keep them motivated and keep them going and keep them kind of in it, where they're feeling like they're winning.
Right. Walk us through how you might help your clients set the goals that feel aligned for them and not feel like punishment or pressure.
Yeah. So when I'm helping clients set goals, whether that's because we, technically speaking, more often than not, we set big goals, i.e. outcome goals. I want to, maybe have a healthy lifestyle. I want to be able to live this way. I want to look fit, or I'm going to Mexico in X amount of time, and I want to look good in my bikini when I get there, even though I know that this process goes beyond that. Whatever it is, we have a set sort of outcome goals or visual goals or whatever we want to call them. And then on a weekly basis, we set what we call behavior goals or habit-based goals or small non-negotiable goals that are based on habits and behaviors and sustainable changes that we can make within our lives to push our comfort zone just that little bit, where it's enough that you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable. You have to show up for the thing, but not so much that it's rip the Band-Aid off and go from 0 to 100 to get somewhere, and then all of a sudden all of that falls away because it's not sustainable. So when I'm talking to my clients about goals, generally we're looking for, is it manageable? Is it realistic? Is this client's lifestyle set so that she can achieve this? And we're keeping them small enough again so that she can have that sense of accomplishment and those wins at the end of the week, but also enough to push her just slightly to where she has to think about the fact that she has to show up for this thing. So it's challenging, and I usually call it building the tolerance for discomfort, where you're dipping your toe in or your foot in or whatever to build your tolerance for being uncomfortable, choosing the harder thing over the easy thing, and acknowledging that this is the harder choice in this moment. I can do the easy thing, but if I choose the harder thing, I'm going to feel way more accomplished and I'm going to feel way better about myself. And it's knowing that it's also building my confidence at the end of the day. And at the end of the week, I'm going to be able to check in with Melissa, or I can check in with the community and say, you know what, I showed up for this and it made me feel amazing. So, and then I'll also add that through the process with goal setting, again, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, life is always happening. So we also have to be able to look at, I set this goal on Sunday when I checked in with you, but now it's Wednesday and crap has hit the fan. So I'm not going to be able to meet this goal. So then we talk about that and then we go, okay, but maybe you could do this. Or maybe all these goals that you set, these 2 to 3 goals that you set as your minimum promises for the week are way out of reach now. They're super unrealistic. So what about if we focus on these couple of things instead, just to keep you in it? And they're realistic, they're not stressful, they're manageable, to keep you in it. Turn your dial down and understand that those things are still totally okay. Give yourself the space, the breathing room to only focus on these, because that's all you can take in right now.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, as you were saying that there, I'm thinking of all these instances where, you and I have had those kinds of conversations and things like that for sure. So what results have you seen in your clients when they focus on mindset over just strategy or restriction?
So I always say this. I always say that my coaching is about changing the client from the inside out. And the reason that I say that, and I'll explain it a little bit more, is that I tried to change myself from the outside in. So I tried to change myself, and most of us do this, but I'll use myself as an example. When I competed, I was only focused on the science and the protocol and the strategy. Here's what you have to do. Here's how much you have to eat. Get those things done. Get on stage, flaunt your muscles, move on. And it was great. It got me where I wanted to go. But I ended up in a way worse position than even before I started training at all, period. So when I say I'm trying, and after that, I learned that one of the biggest reasons for my fumble, struggle, whatever post was because I didn't work on my mindset. I was expecting that either I was going to be able to do shows forever, and that was just what I was going to do now, or I was going to be able to stay that lean forever. And, I just didn't work on any of those mindset things. So, as I go through the process with the client, I'm working on helping that client change from the inside out. And what that means is that they understand that the power to change, not only externally, but internally, comes from them. So their power to control, as we talked about, their internal language, their inner critic, their power to control and overwrite or reframe their limiting beliefs, their self-sabotaging patterns, their power to step back and say, instead of panicking, for example, when they're going on vacation with, oh my God, I can't do this, and maintain this. Yes, you can. You've built all of these habits and behaviors through this process. Step back and tell yourself that you can, and remind yourself that you've done the work to be able to trust yourself going into this thing. And or helping them through all or nothing, or limiting, all of those things. And as a client progresses through these things while they're achieving progress, the results are still happening on the outside as well, because they're working on the inside. And not only does that make the process more sustainable, because again, as we talked about, self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. So you are way less likely to not necessarily fall backwards, because I believe that everybody kind of teeters back and forth for a while, because it's just a natural tendency to go with what's familiar, lean into self-sabotaging patterns and those kind of things as you're learning. But you're also learning about the power that you have, about the badassery that you have inside you that allows you to, what will I say, pull up or change the language and stuff in your head way quicker than you used to. So it's not that your mindset is always positive or always super growth even oriented all the time, but it is that you recognize that those things are there. You even acknowledge that the crap inside your head still exists. It doesn't go away, but you're way better at navigating it, at handling it, and at understanding that at the end of the day, you hold all the power and the keys. And most of my clients, this stuff, myself included, this stuff, because we dig deeper than just surface level science and strategy protocol, this stuff seeps way into all other aspects of life. And you'll notice that I've noticed that clients' confidence increases, their ability to believe in themselves increases, their ability to reframe their language increases. They're even like things that they might not have done or participated in before. They're now, because they're feeling more confident in themselves and in their skin, they're willing to do the things. That could be anything, but those things happen. They're willing to go after the job change or the career change, or they're willing to go to the gym when before they would only work out at home, or maybe they switch from going to the gym to working out at home because they feel more confident in what they can do. There's loads of examples that I could tell you, but it's learning. My clients learn, I think, if nothing else, that they can do hard things, and that builds a sense of self-confidence and a sense of self-trust, as well as a sense of self-discipline, self-accomplishment, all of those things. And that matters. That matters to sustainability. That matters to progress. That matters to basically everything.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And then like you said, when you learn that you can do hard things, there's nothing stopping you from anything.
Exactly. And that's basically what we do. And we do it in small incremental ways. So we're doing it together, coach client, in small incremental ways. At first, it might be as simple as, it's hard for me to drink X amount of water a day. And then all of a sudden you're doing it. Or it's hard for me to get 5,000 steps a day, but all of a sudden you're doing it. Those things that seem small in the beginning are, when you look back at them, and then they start to become natural, and they're just natural part of who you are. And now the next step is starting to unfold, and that next step is starting to become who you are. Then you realize, wow, I went from here to here, and now I'm on my way from here to here. And then you realize, that you can do a lot of hard things, all hard things.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask, we talked a little bit more about self-awareness there, and so I'm going to ask test my audience and see, what is one belief that's holding you back? So if you guys want to share in the chat, I'd love to hear what's one belief that's holding you back.
I love that.
So, Melissa, what's one belief about fat loss that you wish everyone would let go of?
Oh my gosh. Can I name a few?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to do a couple. One, that it's quick. It's not quick. So as we talked about kind of in the beginning, there's a big difference between weight loss and fat loss. Weight loss can be quick because you're just chasing a number. So you're doing, I will say, extreme things, restrictive things to get your number to go down. So sometimes that can be quick, but then we have to think about, is it quick because realistically we end up stopping it and then we go backwards. So is it quick? It probably takes longer at the end of the day. So fat loss is not quick, would be my first one. Second one I'd probably say is that it's meant to be done forever. So there's no end date. And again, these are all mindset shifts at the end of the day. Like chasing weight loss versus chasing fat loss, that's a mindset shift. But it's also understanding and being educated on what the two are and how the two are different. But once you're educated, then it's a mindset shift. The same thing as permanent versus temporary. Fat loss is meant, not necessarily that fat loss is meant to be permanent, but the lifestyle change itself is meant to be permanent. You don't have to always be in fat loss. Technically, you should eventually end up in maintenance and just live your life. But it's a permanent change. The things you do to achieve it need to be sustainable and long term. And then I'll just add one more. Most people consider that fat loss needs to be restrictive, and it doesn't. Yes, quality of food matters. Quantity of food also matters. And your quality of food should improve when you're in fat loss, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a donut or whatever your favorite things are on occasion, in moderation, with intention and mindfulness, which you learn as you go if you're paying attention to your mindset with those things in mind.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to start shifting their mindset today, what is one simple thing that they could try?
I would start questioning your patterns, I guess. It's because at the end of the day, if you want to start shifting your mindset or shifting your beliefs, you have to recognize first what they are. You have to so the self-awareness needs to come in. And in order to build the self-awareness, you need to take the pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this thing? And of course, first you need to know what it is you want. So when whatever it is that you want to change about yourself or your patterns or your stories, once you know that, then you have to start questioning what you do and if it's in alignment with the thing that you say you want. And if it's not, then you have to start implementing when you are navigating the thing that you towards the thing that you know and that's familiar and comfortable, but not the thing you want to do. Then you have to start pausing and asking yourself, why do I do this? How is this serving me? And what could I implement as a means of basically a stop, or something that even teaches you to stop if you're on autopilot? So it might be, what's a good example? Sometimes a good example for some people is that they don't actually stop to do the thing that they need to do. So what I mean by that is a lot of people will go all day without eating. Some people do this. I don't know how they do this, but some people do this. And so some people will set a timer to remind themselves that I have to eat. So every, say, 3 to 4 hours, they're setting a timer to remind themselves that they have to eat. And when you have, so that timer then would be your trigger, I guess, that says, okay, this is my pause. Now you have a choice. Are you going to ignore the alarm and not eat? Or are you going to do the thing that is in alignment with where you want to go? That's probably not a great example, but it's the only example I could think of off the top of my head. So if you're looking to change your mindset and you're looking to change your ways, your patterns, or whatever, it's first developing self-awareness around the thing, or first knowing what you want, then developing self-awareness around the thing, and then taking time to stop and pause so that you can make the choice that's more in alignment with where you want to go. If you pause, you can pause for 5 seconds, you can pause for 5 minutes, as long as it gives you adequate time to become aware and ask yourself so that you can make a different choice. There's a huge amount of power in the pause and in stopping and choosing again differently, because now you've paused and what you were going to do doesn't align with what you wanted to do or where you want to go.
Awesome. So we are out of time here. Just wanted to make sure that let people know where they can reach you if they would like to connect with you. This has been fantastic, by the way. Thank you so much.
It was fun. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So as a, sorry. Go ahead and let them know where they can get a hold of you.
Okay, so my website is fitgirlsrock.net. If you go on my website, you can then find all my links to all my social media as well. So you can find my link to Facebook, to Instagram, to YouTube. And if you go on fitgirlsrock.net, you can also contact me via email, and that's probably the easiest way, because that way you have access to them all. You can also, if you go on my fitgirlsrock.net you'll have access to my free Facebook community, and you can join that. I do offer a lot of information inside there. We do live videos in there. I do a ton of free information in there, a lot of tips, etc. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook there, but probably the best way to get through to all of them would be fitgirlsrock.net.
Awesome. Absolutely. Now, as I mentioned that, of course, that I'm one of your clients, and I've been working with you for quite a while. And when I first hired you, it was because I knew that you were the answer for me to lose the fat, because it's not so much in the technique, because I tried all kinds of things. But I knew that by watching your socials and stuff, I knew your technique was looking at the fat loss. So, most of us have a pretty good idea of what we need to do. So why the heck aren't we doing it? And that's why I wanted to hire you, because I knew that that's where you would take me. And I knew I needed that, and I knew that it was deep, and I was still surprised at the commonality between what you do and what I do as a life coach. And there are so many things that you were saying that are like, oh yeah, of course, I know this stuff. Like this makes sense, right? And I want to thank you so much for everything that you do, because you're not only changing bodies, you're changing lives.
Thank you, Doris.
I appreciate you.
I think that, we can all know, I have been one of those people too. I've been on that side of the track where I know what I need to do. And honestly, to this day, I still have a coach. I have a coach that I check in with every week. He writes my fitness programs for me. And I think that accountability and having coaching is, no matter where we are in life, is never a bad thing, because we all, no matter where we are and what level we are, can learn something from someone. So I think that's powerful. And I also want to say, just before we end, that somebody reached out to me the other day. I can't remember the name, and she was like, "I know." She was like, one of your clients. I know one of your clients. And I was like, "Oh, which client?" She's Doris, and she's come a long way, and she's come so far, and yada yada. So I thought that was really cool. I meant to tell you that, and I forgot. I don't remember the name, but there was a lady that I was talking to.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. So yeah, I have nothing more, that unless there's anything else that you would like to say.
No, awesome. I think that's it. But I think I'll end it by saying one other thing in relation to mindset, and that is that just whatever you choose to do for your physique or for your fat loss goals, just remember that, one, sustainability, and two, that your mindset does play a major role in